team I work for, our job also involves looking at social media and also involves engaging with online communities that are springing up off-site that we might never have come across before. But hopefully we'll talk about that more in Kathy's presentation and in the Q&A. But I'm going to be very specific today. So I'm going to focus on comments and crossing this kind of imaginary, or page furniture line that we have on site between what we put above the line, so our editorial output, and what we refer to as below the line, which is our readers discussing it and threads we have going underneath it. So just very briefly, to explain who on earth I am and what I do, I'm part of the communities team around news at The Guardian. I also have counterparts in the culture section of the site and comment is free, development site, and our communities team more broadly also involves our moderation team. Our job is many, many things and lots of experiments all the time. But more broadly is to represent the readers in our editorial kind of decision-making and development, to kind of engender and promote best practice for engaging with those readers throughout the newsroom, and to find new ways to engage those readers by looking at how they're already using our news, responding to it, consuming it, and how they're doing off-site with other people's sites too, and particularly identify where perhaps there might be gaps in our coverage that other communities are pointing out, or that they are filling themselves, that we're not covering at that point. So very briefly, just to explain how you comment on The Guardian, just in case you've never done it before, you have to register to do so. You can use your real name if you want, but you can also use a username. And the majority of the time, our threads are post-moderated. So people can post, and then our moderation team will be monitoring those and taking down after the fact. So this is kind of actually quite similar to Kate's, which is nice to see, although hers was more broad about general engagement. But why is the communities team that I work for so interested in bridging this gap between comments and threads and what we do above the line? All of these reasons: it gives us instant feedback on our coverage, or our report, or our lifestyle feature. It gives us valuable insight into our readers' habits and their behaviour around those types of news or those types of stories. It can very specifically further individual stories, first-person reactions, case studies, points we've perhaps not picked up. It's part of our commitment to being open and social as a news organisation, so building that space for people to react and discuss what we're reporting. And as part of that, helps keep our news accountable. And actually what a lot of my presentation today is about is can't quite build it without meeting those expectations. So when you open up a thread, or when you encourage people to engage either directly by putting calls out for, share your story or send us your images or however you phrase it, or indirectly by opening up a thread, you've got to meet those expectations. People think you're going to be listening or responding, so you've got to get stuck in. So that's the why. I'm going to use one very specific example throughout my talk today. There's lots of really, really great examples of our newsroom and our staff engaging with readers in comment threads and on the site. But I wanted to talk about something. I've only been in this job since January, and it was kind of one of the most long-running engagement exercises since I've been there. And it was this NHS reforms book, Second Wordle of the Day, which ran from April till June. That's about right. And the job of it was to live blog. We used our live blogging software, although it wasn't a typical kind of live story, but to blog about the pause in the government's NHS reforms bill. So they decided to do a big long consultation, even though some of the reforms had already started to come in. So we set this up. It got sort of over the period of April to June, thousands of comments, Monday to Friday, a blog every day, small team of journalists involved, wider network of correspondents, also a kind of dedicated member of the communities team working with them, as well as plenty of other sub-editors and editors on staff. It was a slightly unique proposition because we were using this kind of live blog format that we often use for kind of breaking news events. But that actually, using that format, kind of made it more important that we were aware of our audience and engaging. Because one of the things we try and instill, and one of the kind of first lessons, I guess, of getting our newsroom and our journalists to engage with below the line is this phrase: don't just light the fire and walk away. This comment is from Martin Bellum, who's one of our user experience and information architects at The Guardian. You may also know him as Currybet on Twitter and on his blog. Perhaps it's a slightly absolutist way of putting it. I'll let you read it for itself. But The general phrase, "don't you like the fire and walk away," is a good one, because what we mean by that, as I just mentioned, is once you've set something up, you've launched comments, you've opened them, it's kind of like lighting the touch paper. And if you can, we try and encourage our journalists to return to that conversation once they've set it up. Why? Because of the expectation that needs to be met. And also, particularly with the NHS blog, we were kind of, with the subject matter, indirectly asking for an expert audience to come and talk to us about it. We were also very directly sometimes asking for feedback on particular points or for information we needed, help with data, help with first-person testimony. And so when we got what we were looking for in those comments, we really needed to recognise it, and we needed someone there listening and looking for that response. How do we do this? I mean, it's quite simple, it's quite practical.